And I call the member for Fairfax.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I move a motion related to the United Nations Loss and Damage Fund in the terms in which it appears on the notice paper. Deputy Speaker, on entering this parliament, my background was well over 20 years in business. Much of that spent negotiating international deals, particularly throughout the Asia Pacific. In fact, I think I was probably 21 when I first led an international joint venture negotiation based up in Asia. And throughout all of those years of doing negotiations, I never once had the opportunity, had the fun to face across the table somebody as incompetent and suffering from eternal cluelessness as this government's Minister for Climate Change and Energy. I sat across the table from many a wily negotiator, but never did I have the pleasure of facing somebody as hopeless as this minister. Now, this is the minister who represented Australia and negotiated on our behalf at COP27 in Egypt. And you can just imagine the shrewd operators who are leading negotiations from other countries, how excited they would have been when they saw this minister coming. A minister all excited, jumping in front of every camera he could, claiming Australia was back and we've got money to give away. And that is precisely a mission that he lived to at that conference. I also don't know whose cunning plan it was, which country, that convinced the United Nations to tap this minister on the shoulder to facilitate the negotiations about a loss and damage fund. But it was a clever move and a move that worked because, again, they knew that this minister would jump at the opportunity and give away everything he could. And indeed, that's what he did. True to form, he negotiated on Australia's behalf a loss and damage scheme, which is effectively a compensation scheme, a scheme into which Australia, as well as other developed nations, will pour in money and it will be drawn down upon by developing nations. But as the great negotiator, as indeed the architect of the loss and damage scheme, this Labor minister cannot tell us what's in it. This government cannot tell us the cost of the loss and damage fund. Reports suggest it will cost up to $2 trillion annually up to 2030. Yet this minister cannot tell us how much it's going to cost. What's more, cannot tell the Australian people how much Australia will be contributing to that fund. Of course, it was the same conference where the minister happily signed Australia up to the global methane pledge. Again, no work was done, no homework in understanding what this will cost, what the demands will be on Australian industry, especially farmers with livestock. This is the ongoing business model of this new government, and it comes at great concern to the Australian industry and households. Right now, Australia is amidst an energy crisis. We all know that for the last 6 months, industry has been on its knees because of skyrocketing prices. Families are leading into Christmas deeply concerned about what to do about power bills. As an opposition, we've been calling on the government for 6 months. This same minister, who is very happy to go overseas on an act of blank cheque diplomacy and sign Australia up to deals overseas for which he's done no homework and cannot answer any questions, has ignored the plight of Australian industry and Australian households. Still to this day, the government has no plan to address these problems. They've been saying for 6 months that a plan is being baked up, a plan will come forward. Meanwhile, Australian households suffer and they pay, and they are bound to be paying billions of dollars through this loss and damage fund.
I thank the member for